If lately your life feels like it's on a loading screen, spinning circle, everything technically working yet nothing quite moving, you're not stuck, you're buffering for something bigger. You notice it in the small, odd moments. The cafe you loved tastes like a memory instead of a ritual. The playlist that once lifted you barely registers, and the conversations you used to pour yourself into now skim across the surface like stones that won't sink. You keep checking yourself for a problem and can't find one. It's not sadness, not burnout, not boredom. It's the faint sensation of the ground rearranging beneath you, as if your inner compass has quietly rotated a few degrees and the map you've always used doesn't line up with the terrain anymore. The mind looks for alarms, go faster, add more, fix this, but the deeper truth is simpler and more radical. What you're feeling is an energetic reconfiguration that happens before every significant leap. Think less of a door slamming and more of a room dimming so your eyes can adjust, less of a crisis, more of that strange hush right before the first snow settles on a city and everything sounds different. Routines lose their charge because they were calibrated to a version of you that's already retiring. Goals stop sparking because they were written by an author you've outgrown. Even ambition can feel oddly flavorless, not because you've lost your edge, but because the edge you're meant to ride next is cut from another material entirely. This is the deep clean before the new furniture arrives, the low tide that exposes ground you didn't know was there. And yes, it's disorienting, but disorientation is not danger. It's the nervous system catching up to a schedule your soul set months ago. If you can resist the impulse to fill every quiet with noise, to replace every pause with motion, you'll start to notice micro-signals threading through your day. A name you haven't thought of appears twice. A half idea you shelved won't stop tapping your shoulder. An opportunity that doesn't make sense on paper won't leave your body alone. These aren't random. They're continuity errors from a future scene bleeding backward into the present. Proof that the timeline you're lining up with is already casting a shadow here. Don't muscle through it. Breathe through it. Let the emptiness be a container, not a verdict. This is the season of molting. Old identities flake off, not because you failed at them, but because you completed them. Your job isn't to glue them back on, it's to honor the shell for the shelter it gave and step out a little tender, a little luminous, unarmored enough to fit the life that's trying to fit you. The transition that comes next is subtler than effort and more precise than motivation. Before a leap, reality behaves like a house at night with many doors slightly ajar. You can sense drafts of possibility moving through the hall, each carrying a different temperature, a different scent. You aren't meant to sprint toward any particular door, you're meant to notice which breeze your chest relaxes into. In physics, they talk about states that coexist until something decides. Call it observation, call it resonance. You don't need the jargon to understand the experience. More than one future is available, and your system is sampling them. That's why your mood can tilt from electric clarity in the morning to a soft fog by afternoon, why the same idea can feel genius on Monday and irrelevant on Tuesday. You're not flaky, you're scanning. Think of it like tuning an old radio. Twist the dial too quickly and you'll just hear static. Move it slowly, and a station snaps into place with such crispness that you didn't realize how much noise you'd been tolerating until it's gone. The leap isn't about cranking the volume, it's about finding the exact frequency where the song you've been hearing faintly becomes undeniable. How do you do that? You stop auditioning for your old life. You stop performing competence that no longer fits your bones. You let silence elevate your discernment. You choose one tiny act that matches who you're becoming. A different route to work that makes your body feel open. A conversation you've avoided that frees your breath. A boundary that feels like sunlight on skin. And you repeat it until the new pattern hums on its own. Watch how reality answers. A text arrives at the moment you decide to clear a shelf. A mentor appears after you admit a dream out loud. A no you've been dreading leaves space for a yes that doesn't require you to shrink to fit. These are the clicks of the dial slipping into the groove, and the paradox is this: the more you try to force the jump with sheer will, the more the doors drift closed out of self-protection. The more you choose alignment over urgency, the more they swing inward as if you were expected. Let the pre-jump be an airlock where pressure equalizes, not a treadmill where you prove your worth with sweat. Keep your senses wide, keep your decisions clean. When the right station locks, the quiet you've been surviving turns into signal, and what felt like waiting reveals itself as precision. There is a particular kind of unraveling that shows up right before the new life takes root. You begin to feel like a guest in your own habits. The clothes you once wore like armor suddenly feel like costumes from a role you're no longer playing. The calendar entries you used to defend with your whole chest start to look like placeholders, as if someone booked your time before asking who you've become. You notice yourself delaying replies that used to be instant, not from laziness, but because your words don't want to co-sign an identity your body has already outgrown. This is not failure, and it's not flakiness. It's the fabric of the old self loosening its weave so the new pattern can be threaded through. Of course there's grief mixed in. The routines did carry you here. The goals did keep you moving. The people did matter. Honor that. But don't confuse gratitude for a reason to stay. Think of a library doing a deep curation. Not every book was bad. Many simply aren't relevant to the curriculum anymore. Some friendships will shift to a softer orbit, not because of drama, but because resonance has rules. Some ambitions will reveal themselves as scaffolding, crucial when the structure was going up, unnecessary once the house can stand. You'll feel the urge to make a grand gesture, burn it all down, reinvent overnight. But dissolving is more elegant than that. It's a series of micro-permissions. You let a story expire by not retelling it. You end a habit by not performing it on schedule. You stop watering what no longer bears fruit. You'll be tempted to diagnose yourself. Am I unmotivated? Am I scared? But a better question is, where does my breath deepen? Follow that. Your nervous system is a more honest compass than your to-do list. Start small and sacramental. Clear one shelf and put nothing back on it for a week. Let there be space and watch what asks to live there. Retire a trophy you've been keeping just to prove a point to a past audience. Unsubscribe from inputs that make you feel like a malfunctioning machine and replace them with inputs that make you feel like a living organism. If a commitment requires you to shrink to fit, thank it for its service and set it down like a winter coat in April. You're not quitting, you're molting. What if you misread a signal and let go of the wrong thing? Trust that what is truly yours will knock again, louder and kinder. The dissolving is not punishment, it's compost. Everything that's breaking down becomes fuel for what's breaking through. The emptiness that follows is not a void to fear, but a field being tilled. Give it time to be awkward. Let the silence do its precise work. When the next version of you arrives, it should find a life with enough room to breathe. Then comes the friction that tells you you've changed on the inside faster than your world can change on the outside. You'll feel it as a quiet rub between gears. Your pace and the pace around you no longer mesh. Meetings that used to glide now drag at your ankles. Jokes you used to laugh at bounce off without landing. You walk into certain rooms and feel your energy fold in on itself, like a flower closing at dusk. Nothing wrong has happened on paper. What you're experiencing is a phase mismatch, two rhythms, both real, falling out of sync. Imagine trying to play a pristine digital track through a warped vinyl needle. The song is there, but the medium keeps distorting it. Most people respond by cranking the volume. More hustle, more proving, more explaining. But volume isn't the issue, alignment is. You don't force coherence by shouting at it. You create coherence by choosing environments, conversations, and micro-actions that make your body exhale. Start noticing where you feel like you're swimming upstream with a backpack on, and where you feel like the current has quietly turned in your favor. Say no without a thesis. Give a slow yes that has weight. Rearrange your day so your first hour belongs to the frequency you're cultivating. Move, write, pray, plan, but do it in a way that feels like tuning rather than performance. Let small acts be your metronome. A glass of water before coffee, daylight before screens, one honest message instead of 5 polite evasions. Watch for signal returns, the conversation that unlocks when you stop trying to be interesting and start being true. The opportunity that appears the moment you make the calendar reflect your actual priorities. The inexplicable ease that arrives when you stop explaining yourself to people who are invested in the earlier edition of you. This friction will also tempt you to repair what's unraveling, to sand down the edges so you can fit where you no longer belong. Don't fix what your future is trying to free you from. If a door sticks every time you pass through it, it's feedback, not a flaw to polish. Choose rooms that tune to you and watch how quickly your tone stabilizes. When orchestra players warm up, it sounds like chaos until one clear A rings out and the entire hall organizes around it. Become your own tuning fork, hold the note. The people and opportunities that are meant for this frequency will find their pitch and join you. The ones that can't will drift to a different song without a fight. This is how the mismatch resolves, not with force, but with fidelity to the sound only you can keep steady. When the volume on your feelings suddenly cranks up, as if someone took your inner world and slid every knob to 11, don't mistake that intensity for malfunction. It's not proof that you're fragile, it's proof you're close. Amplification shows up as whiplash, thrill at breakfast, dread by noon, tenderness at dusk, a flare of certainty at midnight that evaporates by morning. You're not broken, you're oscillating while two timelines compete for coherence. Imagine standing between two speakers playing different tracks. If you try to dance to both, you'll trip. If you let your body choose one rhythm, the room steadies. Emotions in this phase aren't judges delivering a verdict, they're indicators flashing, you just placed weight on this reality. Hope lights up because you briefly stood in the future. Doubt surges because an old predictive model is trying to reboot. Your nervous system prefers what it can predict, even if what it predicts isn't good for you, so it will fling familiar sensations across your path like gravel, hoping you'll slow down and return to the road it knows. Don't wage war with the gravel. Feel it underfoot and keep walking. Label what moves through you without writing a story around it. This is fear in my chest, not this means I'm failing. Notice how quickly the weather changes when you let it be weather. Use your body like a tuning instrument. Unclench your jaw, soften your tongue from the roof of your mouth, lower your shoulders by one breath's worth, and lengthen your exhale until your spine feels heavier than your thoughts. The goal isn't to stay hyped or banish doubt. The goal is to stay coherent while currents pass through. Build tiny stabilizers you can deploy anywhere. Stack 2 more breaths than you want to take before responding. Put your bare feet on the floor for 30 seconds and listen for the quietest sound in the room. Write one sentence that starts with "even now" and finishes with something undeniably true. These small acts don't seem spiritual enough to count, but they're covert architecture. They teach your system that intensity is survivable, and from survivability comes choice. You'll notice patterns inside the surge. Certain people spike you. Certain times of day thin your patience. Certain spaces either oxygenate your chest or compress it. Adjust inputs without drama. Curate the morning so the first signal your system receives is your own. Give your attention the dignity of a velvet rope. Who and what gets past the rope must be aligned with the person you're stabilizing into. Don't confuse momentum with coherence. A storm has momentum, a lighthouse has coherence. In a turbulent week, choose to be more lighthouse than weather report. If a wave hits, don't analyze its biography. Ride it like a surfer who knows the shore is nearer than the mind claims. There will be spikes that feel like backslides, but spikes are just the field asking, can you hold your note here too? Say yes in the smallest possible way. Unclench, breathe, choose the next honest action, and let that be enough frequency for the moment. One moment of clean resonance generates more forward pull than a full day of frantic correction. Trust the accumulation of these moments. Emotions are not hurdles to clear before you're allowed to leap. They are the warm-up that makes your landing supple when you do. Then comes the phase where reality presents you with uncanny reruns, situations you swore you graduated from, triggers you were sure you outgrew, conversations with the exact flavor of an old ache. This isn't a cosmic prank, it's a final diagnostic. Your system is being invited to demonstrate the new pattern, while the old stimuli are still on the screen. Think of it like a software update that prompts a restart. The operating system needs to boot under real conditions to prove the patch holds. You don't pass by never feeling the old pull, you pass by choosing differently while feeling it. The echo offers you a golden gap, a sliver of space between activation and action where the entire timeline can pivot. Guard that gap like treasure. In it, ask better questions. What would future me do with this exact fact pattern? What preserves my frequency even if no one else understands it? What response will still feel true tomorrow morning? Then enact the smallest version of that answer. Don't wait for a grand gesture. Take the micro-action that signals the field you are who you say you are now. Send the honest sentence instead of the performative paragraph. Decline with warmth instead of accepting with resentment. Put the card back in your wallet instead of numbing the discomfort with a purchase that mortgages your clarity. If an old scarcity script flares, practice sufficiency in 1 square foot of your life. Finish what's on your plate, pay one bill fully, and bless it. Repair something small so your nervous system feels the texture of enough. If anger surges, upgrade it from explosion to boundary. The energy was always asking for a container. If shame tries to pull you offline, meet it with disclosure to one safe person. Secrecy is its oxygen. Honesty is its extinguishing foam. You'll be tempted to interpret these echoes as proof that nothing has changed. Refuse that interpretation. Consider them evacuation alarms, making sure no one's left in the old building before demolition begins. Walk every floor with a flashlight and call out to any lingering pattern. Thank you for what you protected. Your watch is over. Then lock the door behind you and hand the keys back. To help the body believe the mind, ritualize your choices. When you choose the higher response, mark it. A pebble in a jar, a line on a ledger, a note on your phone that reads, "Collapsing the old line." These simple witnesses accumulate into evidence your nervous system can trust. Expect the echoes to get louder just before they fade. That's how signals behave when they're losing power. Expect some people to test whether you're serious, respond by not auditioning. Expect logistics to briefly snarl when you stop people-pleasing. Clarity often looks like disruption on the first day. Through it all, measure progress by recovery time, not by never wobbling. If you return to center faster than last time, you rerouted the circuit. Keep choosing the behavior that belongs to the timeline you're calling in until it stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like you. That's the click you're listening for, the moment when the mirror stops reflecting the past because there's nothing left in you for it to catch. There is a moment when the bridge appears only after your foot leaves the step behind you. That's the threshold. Less a place you stand and more a decision you embody. You'll feel the temptation to keep one hand on the old railing, to bargain for a guarantee, to ask for a sign that comes with a refund policy. But thresholds don't issue guarantees, they respond to coherence. Commitment is the geometry of a leap. Everything aligns once you stop negotiating with the version of you that would prefer a longer runway. The mind will draft a dozen contingencies because it mistakes caution for wisdom, but the body knows when a corridor has ended. Notice the signs of finality, the way your energy dims in certain conversations no matter how politely you perform. The way maybe tastes stale in your mouth, the way your favorite excuses, timing, practicality, what would they think, have lost their persuasive power. You are not irresponsible for stepping. You are responsible for answering the truth you've already felt. Think of the threshold as an airlock between atmospheres. You equalize pressure by closing the hatch behind you before the next one opens. That closure can be gentle, an email sent, a key returned, a calendar cleared, but it must be clean. The universe reads clarity like a passport stamp. If you wobble, stay still long enough to choose rather than flinch. Ask, which action would still honor me if no applause followed? Which move would I make if the outcome were guaranteed by alignment rather than effort? Then make the smallest, irreversible version of that move. Replace the performance of certainty with the practice of honesty. Tell one person the truth you've been whispering to yourself. Unhook from the obligation to explain the entire architecture of your decision. Thresholds respect brevity. Ritualize the crossing in your own language. Write the final date on the old chapter and sign it. Dispose of the artifacts that keep calling you back into roles you've already completed. Purchase one tool that belongs to the future you're claiming and place it where your eyes fall first in the morning. Watch the environment rearrange itself the way a flock pivots mid-air when a critical mass turns. The external world is far quicker to harmonize when your internal vote is unanimous. And remember, surrender is not defeat, it's precision. Effort tries to pry the door open with force. Surrender finds the handle. You'll know you've crossed when your choices feel more like recognition than invention, when the silence around you rings like a tuning fork instead of an empty room, when the fears that used to dictate your pacing become background rustle rather than steering commands. Don't sprint to prove you've arrived. Thresholds reward steady breathing and clean margins. Keep your gaze where your feet are. Let the next thought be shaped by the action you already took, not by the what-ifs you retired. This is the hinge-click moment, the quiet yes that turns the whole door. Leave the last glance behind you. It's more expensive than it looks. What waits ahead is not a test you pass, but a rhythm you join, and it begins on the other side of your own full-bodied yes. What surprises most people is how softly the new life lands. No drum roll, no confetti, just the absence of friction you didn't realize you were budgeting for every day. You wake and notice there's space between your first breath and your first thought. The problem that used to pitch a tent in your chest now shows up like weather in the distance. You see it, you dress for it, and you do not become it. A conversation that would have hijacked your nervous system last month now dissolves because there's nothing left in you for it to hook onto. The jump seldom announces itself as spectacle because it completed at the level of identity, not circumstance. The outer rearrangements are simply the manners of a reality that has already been chosen. Integration begins here, and its hallmark is unforced ease. You don't need to poke the field to see if it's still working. That's an old reflex from a timeline that required constant proof. Instead, you cultivate fidelity. You make your environment fluent in your new frequency. Remove the objects that carry you back into outdated versions of yourself. Place reminders of your current commitments where your hand naturally reaches. Set your phone, your desk, your playlists to reflect the person who lives here now. Swap the language of striving for the language of stewardship. Less, I hope this sticks. More, I care for what I've called in. Choose maintenance rituals that feel like devotion rather than discipline. A weekly review where you bless what aligned and prune what didn't. A morning check-in where you ask your body what would make today gentle and effective. An evening audit that ends with gratitude specific enough to be unfakeable. Let relationships resort without drama. Some will deepen because your steadiness gives them a place to rest. Others will recede because the only bond was your willingness to contort. You don't need to litigate the drift. Bless people at the distance that preserves love. When synchronicities begin to cluster, timely introductions, aligned invitations, the web page you needed opening exactly where you left it, thank them and carry on. They are mile markers, not destinations. Practice economic action. One clear email instead of 5 tentative ones. One fully inhabited hour instead of a day of distracted reach. One promise kept to yourself that makes your nervous system trust you more than it trusts your calendar. Guard your baseline like a hearth. Anything that dims it must either justify its cost or leave. Expect the mind to occasionally ask for fireworks, smile at the request, and return to the quiet proof your default settings have changed. Decisions that once required white-knuckling now feel like walking downhill. You're not waiting for permission, you're following momentum with discernment. If a challenge arises, meet it at your new altitude. Don't descend to old strategies to solve new problems. Let your current coherence set the terms of engagement. When in doubt, ask, what does the resident of this reality do next? Then do the smallest faithful version of that. The field responds quickest to consistency, not intensity. Keep showing up like the person who belongs here and watch how the world organizes around your steadiness. The arrival's quiet is not anticlimax, it's durability. It means the shift has woven itself into the ordinary. And that is where lives are truly transformed, not in the blaze, but in the way breakfast tastes, in the way your name sounds in your own mouth, in the way you choose again and again to remain. Living here now means you stop treating your life like a trial run and start stewarding it like a home. You don't chase the feeling, you maintain the frequency. Maintenance looks deceptively simple. You retire the drama of extremes and get interested in the quiet mechanics of congruence. You let your calendar tell the truth about your values, not just your intentions. You move the first hour of your day out of negotiation and into devotion, one act that nourishes your baseline before you touch anything that makes a claim on it. You treat attention like precious currency and spend it where returns compound. Deep work over scattered reach, one honest conversation over 10 strategic pleasantries, a promise kept to yourself over applause earned from strangers. You create environmental allies, so discipline is less about wrestling and more about flow. The book you reach for is the one that steadies you. The snacks in arm's reach are the ones your body thanks you for. The desktop shows only what belongs to the future you're anchoring. Your language evolves. You stop saying "I'm trying" and start saying "I'm choosing." You stop asking, "Do they get it?" and start asking, "Do I remain coherent?" You build micro-rituals that signal the field who you are now. A 2-minute reset after hard calls, an evening inventory that notices wins small enough to be real, a weekly pruning where you remove what grew fast but not true. Relationships resort without courtroom speeches. You let proximity be earned by reciprocity and resonance. Boundaries stop feeling like fences and start feeling like good architecture, doors that open easily for aligned weather, walls that keep the hearth warm when storms roll through. When setbacks happen, you grade your growth by recovery time, not by imaginary perfection. A wobble isn't a verdict, it's a request to retune. You ask your body for feedback as often as you ask your mind for plans. Where did my breath go shallow today? What act returned it? You protect margin like a living thing. You give no the dignity of being complete without apology and let yes be slow enough to mean something. You stop borrowing tomorrow's clarity to pay for today's people-pleasing. Money becomes a mirror for alignment rather than a megaphone for fear. You invest in tools that extend your integrity and spend less on costumes for identities you no longer perform. You learn the art of minimum viable integrity, doing the smallest faithful thing you can sustain again and again until it becomes your default. When the old signal pings, you don't sprint back to prove you're healed. You breathe. You make one present tense choice that your future would thank you for, and you carry on. Consistency outruns intensity. A single fully inhabited hour each day, repeated, will outperform a heroic week you can't replicate. This is how living the new frequency feels in practice. Fewer grand gestures, more clean repetitions, less convincing, more congruence, not louder, truer. You stop auditioning for rooms you've outgrown and start furnishing the reality that fits. And the world, reading your steadiness like a lighthouse, begins to organize itself around your signal. The deeper revelation is that the leap was never granted to you. It was generated by you. The field doesn't decide your worthiness and then reward you with a portal. It mirrors your being and arranges accordingly. Outcomes are echoes. Identity is the speaker. When you realize this, you stop worshipping results and start cultivating congruence, because congruence is causative. You become the kind of person for whom the thing you wanted is simply appropriate, almost obvious. Not because you faked it until you made it, but because you aligned until it arrived and then kept aligning after it did. You're no longer bargaining with the universe like a contractor. You're collaborating with it like a composer, letting your note be so steady that harmonics appear. You replace superstition with stewardship. You bless the ordinary. You keep your agreements. You let your future self set the house rules. You choose ambition that's powered by love of expression rather than fear of insufficiency, which is why it scales without stripping you. You remember that every decision declares a citizenship, old world or new, and you cast your vote with your feet, your inbox, your diet of thoughts, your bedtime. You stop waiting for confidence to arrive before you move. You move in small, congruent ways until confidence has no choice but to catch up. You stop asking for signs that exempt you from uncertainty and start allowing uncertainty to be the price of admission for a life that's alive. You measure success by how little contortion it requires. You don't descend to solve a problem. You invite the problem up to a higher altitude where different options exist. You make peace with the quietness of genuine change and with the fact that many won't notice because you didn't change for them to. You acknowledge the paradox that the more you remain, the more reality advances. You realize that sovereignty is not isolation. It's the ability to be in company without outsourcing your center. You cultivate a simple, private vow you can keep under pressure, something like, "I do not abandon myself," and you keep it on hard days when no one is cheering. You let gratitude be specific enough to anchor you. This cup, this hour, this one step you would have avoided last year that now feels like home. And when the old life tries its final callbacks, you meet them with blessing and a closed door. You don't need to dramatize the exit or decorate the entrance. The truest transitions are clean. If this is happening to you, if your life feels lighter in the honest places, if your choices land with a satisfying click, if peace is starting to feel like your native climate, then you're not just close to the leap, you are its source. Keep being the cause, keep holding the note. The field is listening and it speaks fluent you.